What's up, everybody? Matt Kajeski here, back again with the Stokastic DFS channel, talking some college football DFS. It's Wednesday, November the 2nd. That means Maction continues with the new slate of games. We've got two of them to talk about. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We're also brought to you guys today by Prize Picks. And Prize Picks, they're a site that offers daily prop-based contests. You're making lineups of player props going over, under on all the major statistical categories, really across sports. They have NFL, college football, MLB, NBA, NHL, whatever it is, they likely have it. And you can make lineups across sports. You can mix and match college football with NFL, with MLB, whatever it is you know and love. And better yet, they have an offer for you guys right now. If you click the link in the video description below, you'll get one free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to a $100 match deposit bonus when you make your first deposit with Prize Picks. So make sure to check them out. All right, we'll bring you behind the glass, show you our player usage data tool for those of you on YouTube. If you're on audio, go ahead, check this out on YouTube or on the site. But all our game environment factors, won't belabor this too much because we've been through it a lot here. The first thing to mention with this two-game slate is if you're not available at lock, you probably shouldn't play today's slate. If you did not like this, say, Bangura situation last night where he was ruled out after lock, we've got about 6 of those situations tonight. So you need to be at your computer as the slate locks to get that last-second news, figure out who's warming up, who's not. And we'll kick this off with the starting point here. Western Michigan taking on Bowling Green. Bowling Green taking a lot of money here, -4.5. It's up to 5 in some spots. The total is 47.5. On the Western Michigan side, this team ranks 66th in pace. They're passing 47% of the time, and it's been a mess for Western Michigan all year. They started the year with Jack Salopek. He threw 5 interceptions in his most recent game. And then they talked about him being banged up a little bit, so they started Trayson Bourget in their last game. He didn't even manage to hit 4 yards per attempt through the air. Nobody's really all that mobile on this offense. And they've talked about using 3 signal callers between Salopek, Trayson Bourget, and Marion Hrabinski. I don't know who plays the majority of the snaps. This is not a situation for the faint of heart. You could maybe take a stab on whoever takes first team reps and warmups, but just remember this is likely a situation with multiple players on the field tonight. Running back, the team dismissed Ladarius Jefferson, the Michigan State transfer, from the team. I'm not sure if this is for the rest of the year or what it is, but he's not playing tonight, which means it should be the Sean Tyler show, which it has been through the last 2 weeks anyway. He had 19 and 22 carries in those games. He's averaging 17 touches on the year. He has a pretty decent receiving role, 2.5 targets per game over the last 4. Sean Tyler is very clearly the best play in this offense. And you look at what this team allows on the other side, Bowling Green, 4.7 yards per attempt. They're beatable on the ground. Sean Tyler, he's somebody you could definitely look at his price. And then I think the change of pace is now going to be Zaire Abdus-Salam, who had 10 carries in their most recent game. He hasn't really seen a lot of work this year. He has just 27 carries in the year, so 10 of them coming most recently, but no Jefferson. This team runs a lot, so I would expect him to get a little bit of work here and maybe enter GPP viability. Among the receivers for Western Michigan, this has been a kind of a disaster all year, mainly stemming from the poor quarterback play. I don't anticipate it getting much better, but at least we can hang our hats on Corey Crooms being the wide receiver 1, at least through this point in the year. Routes are consistent for him. He's on the field for every single snap. Jelani Galloway also on the field every single snap, and the same can be said with Anthony Sambucci. Those are your top 3 guys. A little bit separates them in yardage and targets. 9.9 targets per game for Crooms, 58.6 yards. Galloway, 5.9 targets per game, 41 yards. Sambucci, 3.6 targets per game, 27 yards. But just know that these numbers have risen as Western Michigan's gotten into conference play. Even Sambucci's targets over the last 4 games have climbed up to 6 per game in that span. Tight end, this is not a position of much importance in the offense. You're going to see a rotation between Blake Bosma, Josh Bourget, not really consistent. Bosma leads this group with a 60% route share, but again, I think you're probably just playing Sambucci for a cheaper price. Bowling Green, 88th in pace, 52.5% pass rate. This team There's plenty of good matchups against Western Michigan, mainly through the air. Western's allowing 8.5 yards per attempt. The issue is Matt McDonald hasn't been great. He's not really mobile, but he at least has positive yards, 46 on the ground. 230 yards per game as a passer on 34 attempts for McDonald. He's really expensive for this price, but honestly, we don't have a lot of good quarterback options. So, I mean, by default, you might end up just playing McDonald. He flat out might be the best. Western's not better than him, and we'll talk about the Central and NIU situations in a second, but it's not great. In the backfield, we have Jason Patterson playing most of the time right now, 18 carries in back-to-back games. He's not a pass catcher. He has just 3 targets on the year. So you're relying a little bit more on just positive game script, which he should have, and the fact that he's been really involved lately. But Jamal Johnson also be involved as a change of pace. Teron Keith will get a couple carries here and there. They also don't really use one of these guys as the main pass catcher. Keith would be the guy you get to, but he's still only averaging 2 targets per game. It's an 11% target share. So Keith maybe enters the GPP conversation, but he should not be more expensive than Patterson overall. I think Patterson is playable at this price. 47 yards per game, 10.6 touches. Again, that's all on the rise. More of a GPP play. I would rather play like Tyler on the other side, 1-for-1, but Patterson certainly live at that price. In the receiving game, we've got pretty clear target pecking order here, I'd say. Odiu Hilaire, CJ Lewis, Tyrone Broden are your 3 receivers. Christian Sims, your tight end. And there's not a whole lot that separates them. This team will use 2 tight ends a fair amount, which is a bit of a concern. But let's bring you to the routes. I think that's the most telling way to talk about this. Odiu Hilaire, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. He has a 70% route share on the year. That's been very consistent for him. CJ Lewis, he's at 68.5%. That's been consistent. Tyrone Broden, 65%. Pretty consistent. Sims, his route rate is about 55%. That's just with a slight rotation. You're going to see when they use 4 wide occasionally. Kevon Kroom has a 30% route share. Harold Fannin gets on the field about 20% of the routes, and Andrew Bench, 20% of the routes. Bench and Fannin are other tight ends. So you can see it's not just locked in Christian Sims to this role. Sometimes they'll rotate another receiver. Sometimes they'll rotate Fannin or Bench. They'll even use Levi Gazarek a little bit at tight end too. His route rate's also 26%. So that's not clear. With the prices the way they are, I think you can play Odiu Hilaire pretty easily. It's 5.9 targets per game, 47 yards, and then Lewis and Broden come in at 38.5 and 36.5 receiving yards. Target volume is not too different between all 3 of these guys, but Hilaire, 4,500, he's kind of in that midway price point. I think he's the best play to get to in this game. Lewis would be the cheapest for those of you punting. Game 2, Central Michigan, Northern Illinois. It does not get any more pleasant here. 56.5 total, 5.5 point spread in favor of Northern Illinois. Central Michigan plays at the 19th highest pace. They pass 56% of the time. That could change. And big situation to monitor. Daniel Richardson, their quarterback, got benched in the last game. He has negative 66 yards in the year. He was averaging 217.5 on 35 attempts, so just woefully inefficient. Not all his fault. The team lost a lot of offensive linemen, and he's been under duress constantly this year. And he's not mobile, so they made a switch to Jace Bauer in the last game, who was extremely mobile, 164 yards on just really limited snaps this year. And then 89, 90 passing yards per game for him. Again, he hasn't played a full-time role, but you can see the clear differences. Jace Bauer is a pure dual threat. So seeing the 19th pace in the country, 19th ranked pace, and a 56% pass rate, if Bauer starts this game, this could be just vastly different. Like their pass rate might drop all the way to like 40% if this is who they decide to go with. We don't know. There's a good chance both of them play. And this is another situation where you're just going to have to watch pregame warmups to see who starts. Unfortunately, you're also going to have to do that in the backfield where we have injuries to their top 3 backs. Lou Nichols was called probable in their last game. He did not play. He now has not played in 2 games. With that rhetoric, I think there's a better chance Lou Nichols plays today. And if he does, he's just a smash regardless of matchup. Even though Northern Illinois has been decent against the run, they're a pass funnel defense. Lou Nichols has the most absurd workload in college football when he's fully healthy. You're looking at 30-plus touches for Lou Nichols. So watch his status. He's the best play on the slate if he's active. And then, unfortunately, Marion Lukes got hurt in their last game. He had been their lead rusher the game before, 25 carries for him, 2 games ago, 6 targets. So that's 31 attempts. but he was in a walking boot in the second half. No idea if he plays. That was an issue because they already had Miles Bailey hurt. Initially, when Lou Nichols got hurt, they moved to Miles Bailey first. He got hurt. Then they moved to Marion Lukes. He got hurt. Now there's someone's going to play out of these three. I don't know who it is, but they're immediately going to become a smash. If I'm ranking them, it's Lou Nichols 1, Marion Lukes 2, Miles Bailey 3. If none of them play, which seems far-fetched, but there's a chance, Jake Tefelsky would be the guy to go to, as absurd as that is to talk about. All this to say, you essentially can't build lineups till you get this news. It's just a ridiculous slate. In the receiving game, we have Carlos Carrier as the wide receiver 1. He's really been the only one unaffected by shifts in routes throughout the year. And even he saw his route rate drop from 85% to 66% last week. You know, Joel Wilson probably is the only guy with a consistent route share recently. Over the last 4 games, 96%, 91%, 92%, and 100% of routes. Everybody else has seen theirs drop. Again, Carrier from 85% to 66%. We just saw Jalen McGahee down to 43%. Finn Hogan went down to 43%. It's tough out here. Langston Lewis jumped to 48%. Iron Jackson jumped to 75%. I have no idea who plays what amount of snaps in this offense for Central Michigan. If I'm playing them just based on price right now, it's number 1, Joel Wilson. Number 2, Carrier. 3 is going to be McGahee. 4, Finn Hogan. 5, I'm going to go with Iron Jackson. And it does not feel good. I can't even find him on our list. I'm not sure that he's even been targeted this year. There he is, 2 targets. I mean, 75% route rate, 70% route rate. 75 it was, excuse me. That's worth it at the min, I guess, but what are we doing with Central Michigan here? This is going to be really difficult to peg. Langston Lewis, again, 48% of the routes, 4 targets. I don't know what this team is doing. It's a disaster. And I'd bet Northern Illinois if I knew that they had their quarterback, but we don't know that Rocky Lombardi is going to play. And that's huge for them. They were down to their 3rd-string quarterback in their last game, Justin Lynch. If it ends up being him, he's really mobile, so he would be playable. But if it's not him, Rocky Lombardi, I hope, gets the start. He's at least competent as a signal caller. He has mobility. It's really tough to evaluate his stats on the page here, 160.5 yards per game. He's just been so hurt. These aren't even representative of his season. And then Ethan Hampton is horrific. This team is 0-4 when he takes the majority of the snaps. They should just move to Lynch, and you can't cut college players, but Ethan Hampton, he certainly deserves it. What you want to do here is probably play the running backs, Harrison Whaley, 18.4 touches per game, Ontario Brown, 12.4. Harrison Whaley's way more involved in the pass game than Ontario Brown. So in a 1-for-1 situation, I prefer Whaley, but I think they're both playable. You could use either one here. Lynch is going to siphon off some carries if he plays. He's been getting a lot of work recently regardless. I think Lynch actually would be very playable if he's in there. He gets a lot of work just as a mobile signal caller regardless. And then in the pass game, with Lynch under center, it's changed a lot. They're not throwing the ball hardly at all, but Cole Tucker is the one guy you can get to. 6.6 targets per game, 70 yards. Outside of him, it's similar to Central Michigan. It's kind of a mess for this team. They're probably emphasizing players that can block, especially in the receiving game. Like last week, Cole Tucker, 89% of routes. Casper Rutkiewicz, I don't know how to say his name, 72% of routes. Shamar Thornton, 50%. He's been terrible. Fabian McCray, 26. Messiah Travis, 39. Tight ends, Tristan Chu, 61%. It's a real mess for this Northern Illinois team. But what we can say is Cole Tucker is clearly the one, and I think Casper Rutkiewicz is the wide receiver 2. Those are the guys I get to. So last overarching notes of this slate, the biggest disaster of the year. Need to be at your computer for late news. Need to. If you're watching this video and you can't do it, I would suggest not playing. And the second thing is there's a reason to still play 2 quarterbacks. I think you'll benefit by being at your computer to figure out who's starting, but it's not necessary on today's slate. Normally, it's something I try to do almost at all costs, but we have at least 2 situations which are likely timeshares at quarterback. Northern Illinois is in a question. If Rocky Lombardi plays, he'll play the whole game, presumably, but that leaves just Matt McDonald for Bowling Green and potentially Rocky Lombardi as your clear starters. Central and Western Michigan, I think they rotate regardless, but we don't know who the starter is. And Bowling Green signal caller, Matt McDonald, I mean, he's projected around 14 points. He doesn't run and he's averaging 230 passing. You could very well see a 4 running back lineup take down tournaments tonight. So that's the last thing. Weird slate overall, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think it's as weird as I do? Because I think this is a crazy slate. How are you approaching it? I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, you can reach out to me on Twitter at Matt_Kajeski. And make sure to hit the thumbs up button on the way out. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you to Prize Picks for sponsoring. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you again tomorrow.